Hi guys, it's Tara and welcome to another Crafting with Curly Cues video. So today I have my very first mixed media project to share with you guys. So hopefully this goes okay. This is the very first time I've tried this and I have to give credit where credit is due. I was entirely inspired by Vicky Papaioannou and I will link to all her videos, well, her channel below in the description. It was watching her videos that gave me the inspiration to want to try this out, as well as the know-how to even get started. So what I'm doing here is I am taking a wooden tag that I got at the craft store. So this is just a, basic bare wood piece of material. And I'm starting by applying some Tim Holtz tissue paper on top of that wooden tag, and I am using some multimedia mat to do that. And these are all supplies that I got over at TupeloDesignsLLC, so I will be sure to link to the supplies over at my blog. So if you're interested in anything that I'm using here, check it out. And then once I got that on there, I just kind of tore the ends off, and then I'm going back over with that multimedia mat and I am pushing all this down to make sure that the ends are nice and secure. You can see that I had to speed this up quite a bit. This took me forever, as I'm sure you can imagine. This is my first time doing this, and there's a lot of layers in mixed media, it turns out. So I had to speed it up a lot because I wanted to make sure that I got all the steps in the video. So now I just took a little bit of gesso and I squirted some on the top. And then I used a makeup sponge to go ahead and spread that out. So this is just kind of dulling that tissue paper and pushing it back into the background. So the tissue paper is a great way to start because it just takes away the intimidation of the bare white surface and gives you kind of a pre-made background. So that really helped me get over my anxiety of trying this after watching Vicky's videos and seeing that that's how she starts almost every art book layout that she does. I was like, okay, I can totally put tissue paper down. That's doable. So now I'm adding my color, and I am using gelatos to add my color, and I will list the colors that I'm using on my blog because I'm not entirely sure, but I started with that really pale pretty pink in the center, and then I'm going in with a brighter pink around the outside, and I'm using my fingers and a baby wipe to kind of push that color around where I want it. The baby wipe, not only can you use it directly on the surface, but you can just kind of wet your fingers, and then it helps the gelatos move around if your fingers are wetter. So now I'm using another makeup sponge, and this is some black soot distress paint, and I'm just coming in on the very edges and applying just a little bit of black. So I am wanting to put this piece in my craft room when I'm all done, and my craft room colors are black, white, and pink. So that's kind of where I got my color scheme here. And then I'm going over the top of that with a little bit of gesso because I felt like the black was too overpowering and I wanted to kind of push it back into the back a little bit. So everything that I'm doing here is completely experimental. I'm just kind of, I was like, I want black around the outside, and then I put it on and I'm like, oh, that's too dark. Maybe if I put gesso on the top, that will help. And I realized really quickly that mixed media is super forgiving because of the nature of the layers. You can kind of, you have that leeway to experiment a little bit. So that was super fun. This is kind of a grungy dot stamp by Bo Bunny that I've had forever. I don't even remember where I got it, to be 100% honest with you. And I used some Ranger Jet Black Archival ink because it is a permanent ink. And I wanted to make sure that if I wanted to put more layers over the top, which I know I'm going to do, that this ink isn't going to move around. So that leaf stamp is a dilution stamp, and I just put that on there a couple times using that same archival ink. And then I'm going to take a couple more colors of distress paint. This is some forest moss, and I'm going to paint these little leaves here. So I did one, and I realized that it wasn't covering super great, and I was like, oh, maybe if I put a layer of gesso down first, because that's what gesso is kind of meant to be, is like a primer. So I went in and I added some gesso to those other leaves so that when I put my forest moss on top, it will be more vibrant against the background there. So I'm using makeup sponges to apply all of this. You could absolutely use like paintbrushes. I'm a big fan when I do painting stuff of anything that I can turn around and throw away and not have to stress about cleaning out. So the makeup sponges I can get at my local dollar store for like 25 of them for $1 or something ridiculous like that. So I'm totally cool with throwing those in the trash when I'm done, and I decided to try to use them, and it actually worked out really well. I'm just using the very corner to kind of color in these small spaces. So now I've got some abandoned coral and some fossilized amber distress paint, and I am just coming in at the very bottom of those leaves and adding a little bit of these additional colors just to make them have a little bit more added interest so they're not just the green. So I thought that was fun. It turned out really super pretty and brought just a couple more colors into this design that's really pretty one or two color palette here. So now I've got some Ranger texture paste and I've got this stencil from my stash, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to put some of this stencil around the edges. So this is another tip from Vicky, is that it helps to kind of frame your piece a little bit. So this is what I'm choosing to do to kind of frame my piece, is come in with this white texture paste and go in and put a little bit of this texture around the outside. So I found that this texture paste, to be honest, is not quite as opaque white as I would have liked. It's a little bit, it stays white, but it dries a little bit almost translucent. So I think it'd be really pretty to mix with some color. So I'm excited to try that later, but it wasn't quite as white as I would like. So I might experiment with some different embossing pastes and see if I can find one that I like a little bit better. But it definitely worked great, and like I said, it's going to be awesome to mix with some color, so I'm excited to try that on a different project. So now I came in with my Faber-Castell big brush marker, and this is a technique that Vicky uses that I absolutely love, where she shades everything and it just makes everything pop off the page and kind of gives it that extra mixed media grungy look. So this is Indian ink and it dries permanent, but you do have a couple seconds after you apply it to move it around, as long as you're using a non-pour surface. So when I started, I hadn't put my multimedia mat all over the top of these leaves, and so I wasn't able to move that ink around. So you saw that I went back in and I put some of that multimedia mat on top of everything and then hit it with my heat tool to dry it. I'm heat drying everything with my tool in between stages because I'm definitely don't have the patience to wait for everything to dry. But once I did that, I was able to move that ink around. Not quite as well as I would have liked. I think maybe it's because I'm working on a wooden project and there's some texture kind of on it that's keeping the ink in there, but it still moved around. It still looked really cool. So this is a Faber-Castell fine line pen, and this is the small size, and I'm just kind of going back over these leaves and retracing the stamp lines, and I'm kind of using little sketchy lines. I'm not doing like one solid line, I'm doing little sketch lines, and I think it looks super cool. Again, adds to that mixed media feel. So now I'm getting ready to do my focal point. And this is an image that I actually printed off the internet. I just kind of Googled barn owl and this guy came up, and I thought he was simple enough that I, in my extremely limited artistic ability, might be able to copy it. So I just cut it out of, I used it kind of as a template, and I cut it out of a couple different wood grain patterns here that I had in my stash for some pattern paper. And now I'm going to take some black soot distress ink and I'm just going to go over this main body of this owl here and turn that a little bit darker. So my inspiration for this piece is the movie Labyrinth. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, but it's one of my all-time faves. So, plus I love owls. So I was trying to think, what do I want in my craft room, like forever and always? And I thought this would be perfect because it's got the owls and it's going to incorporate one of my favorite movies of all time. I often actually play Labyrinth while I'm crafting and just have it going in the background. So anyway. So I used another one of those Bow Bunny stamps. This is kind of a chicken wire pattern, and I thought it kind of looked like feathers. So I used some white archival ink, and I put that over the top of that black owl. And now I'm just going in with my fossilized amber distress paint and kind of turning those little legs a little bit yellow, just so they have a little bit of a different look than the rest of the owl. So now that that is all done, I'm going to go ahead and adhere him to my piece. So I am just using some multimedia matte and covering my space there, and then putting a little bit on the back of him, and then I'm just going to stick him down where I want and cover the whole thing with the multimedia matte. So I keep covering everything with the multimedia matte because I want to make sure I'm creating that non-pour surface so I can use that big brush marker to create my shadows. So I put his little face on and I just multimedia matted all over the top of that, and then used my cheating heat tool and dried everything real quick. Because who has time to walk away and let this dry on its own? I mean, come on, let's be serious. I did bust out my nonstick scissors to go ahead and trim off the extra pieces that were hanging off the side there. And now I'm just going to go back in with the big brush marker here, and I'm going to put some shadow all around this owl and make him look like he is part of the background. This is like the coolest trick. When I first started watching Vicky's videos, I was kind of mesmerized by the look that this gives. It truly makes the pieces that you're adding onto the top look like they are part of the piece. Like, it's just really crazy to me how awesome this looks. So now I'm in trouble because now I'm going to have to get a couple more colors of these markers so that I can do some awesome shadowing. And man, I just didn't want to have to buy more stuff. But anyway, fortunately, Tupelo Designs LLC has these markers. So, you know. And now I'm going to come in and I'm using that template that I printed off the internet as a guide. And I am just going to take that black pen and I'm going to sketch in the details on this owl. And then I'm going to go all the way around the image with the black pen and kind of line it in a nice sketchy line. So I am by no means an artist. I cannot draw. This was the most intimidating part of this whole project to me, to be 100% honest. But I found that using the little template and the forgiving nature of mixed media, it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. So if you think that you can't draw, so you can't do something like this, like, you know, hey, if I can do it, you can do it. Also, if you had like a stamp, or you could totally cut this out of like your Cricut or your Silhouette, I could have done that, but to be honest, I was too lazy to turn it on. So I just used the internet. But it worked out pretty well. So now I'm adding a little bit of shadows to just bring his little face to life and give some depth to his face there. And then I will go in and make his little beak yellow. And then I'll go in and add a bunch of shadows to the body of the owl to give depth. So even though it's a black image, you can still see these shadows. And I think it just looks super cool and just really brings this owl to life. I think he looks really neat when he's all done. So while I have a moment, I want to talk about that craft mat that I'm using there. So this is the craft mat from Tupelo Designs LLC, and this is a phenomenal craft mat. It's a little bit thicker than the ones that you get from Ranger. It's super awesome. It's non-stick. You can just wipe anything off of it, from the paint to the adhesive. Like, it's really handy to have, especially if you're doing a project like this. And let me tell you, this got messy. I think my hands are permanently coated in multimedia matte. But so anyway, this craft mat is really phenomenal. And this month, the month of January, Tupelo Designs LLC is going to be doing some giveaways because it is their 1-year anniversary. And so twice this month, they're going to be giving away one of these craft mats. So every time you make a purchase, your name gets entered in the drawing to win one of these craft mats, and there's going to be a drawing mid-month on the 15th and then at the end of the month on the 31st. So definitely head over there if you're thinking about looking at something, because not only do you get entered to win the mat, but they're giving away free blending tools with every order. I mean, there's just all kinds of good stuff going on. They've got free shipping. They've got international shipping at discounted rates this month. So head on over to Tupelo Designs LLC. I'm going to link it below in the description, so make sure you check that out. So for my words, I printed those out on my computer, and then I just cut them up into little individual word blocks. I really like this look. I do it on my cards sometimes too. And then I use my gelatos to go ahead and color it the same color as the background, but I did kind of make it a little bit brighter pink. And then I added the black border, and then I toned it down with gesso. And then I did go back over each of them with the super light pink just to kind of blend it all together. I really like the way that they turned out. And now I'm using my multimedia mat to stick them on the piece here where I want them. And then I'm just lining them with my big brush marker just like I did everything else. I also took the fine point black marker. My camera kind of stopped there for a second. It filled up and I didn't realize it. And I lined each square with a line also just to kind of make that pop even more. So now for the final touch, and this is something that Vicky does. So I'm telling you, every single thing that I did today, I learned from Vicky. So if you're interested in doing this kind of mixed media, definitely check her channel out. She is amazing. But I'm going in with my Signo White Uniball gel pen, and I'm just adding some white highlights. And this is really just the final touch that makes everything pop and gives it that added texture and dimension, and really I think gives it that mixed media look that you kind of, in my mind, there's like a signature look that is mixed media, and Vicky's nailed it. So I was really trying to mimic that. So that is the completed piece. So then all I have to do is take my retractable craft peg from Tim Holtz and just pop the hole back into the top and put the little twine that came with this tag back in the top, and it's ready to roll. And I have a spot all picked out in my craft room. So I really am super pleased with how this turned out. This was my first time and I had so much fun. I did add some white splatters on there too. I couldn't help myself, but I did that off camera. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe. I love to hear from you guys. Go ahead and leave me a comment. Go ahead and check out the description box below. Make sure you head over to Tupelo Designs LLC. All kinds of good stuff going on. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.